So one of my favorite things I ever taught myself how to do was how to throw knives. Now, when I normally tell people about this, that I've been throwing knives for about 2 or 3 years, they're normally pretty shocked. You know, they don't really know what to think about it. But to me, it's just something that I can do. So when I first got the idea into my head to learn how to do this was from watching action movies and ninja movies. And I always thought it was so cool how when they threw a knife, it would just fly through the air and then go exactly where they wanted it. So like any sensible person, I went to YouTube. And on YouTube, there are hundreds, probably hundreds of videos on how to do this. And on the internet, there's just as many articles telling you how to do it. And something I found out very quickly was that throwing knives in real life is almost nothing like throwing them in the movies. You're going to mess up, and not every throw is going to look that pretty. But, you know, that's okay. As long as you have fun and try your best, that's all that really matters. So tonight, I'm going to be explaining what knives to use when throwing, how to throw those knives, and why you would even want to learn this in the first place. So, there are certain characteristics that I've learned throughout the years that make a good knife. So, if you look right here, we have a bad knife and a good knife. And the first difference you see is length. So that first knife is 6 inches long, which is just a little bit longer than your average pencil, like most of you are holding. And it's just not enough, you know, not up there to work with. So this one right here, which is one I personally own, is 13 inches long. And that's a very big knife, you know, it's almost as long as your average forearm. And the weight, 3 to 5 ounces versus over a pound, that's a big hunk of metal that you're throwing here, and that one is just really flimsy. It's like throwing a pencil. And the handle, if you can see right there, it's wrapped in string, which gives extra grip to it, which you think would be better, but it actually makes it harder to slide out of your hand, unlike this one here, which is very smooth. And when you throw it, it just slides out of your hand beautifully and right where you want it to go. And so when you're learning how to throw knives, the first thing you got to work on is arm technique. So when you're standing there facing your target, you bring your arm back over your shoulder and it'll release like this. And you want to release about a 45, 35 degree angle. And you add a little, you know, twist into your body, a little oomph like he's doing in this picture here, and it just gives a little more force. The next thing you want to focus on after you learn how to throw is your hand holds. Personally, I'm a no-spin thrower. So you place your finger on the spine of the knife, and it just slides out of your hand. It doesn't do any spinning on the way to the target. It just flies like this and lands point in. Now, if you want to spin throw, there's 2 different techniques that you can use most of the time. These are generally the 2 ones that most people gravitate towards too. Are the pinch grip, it's where you either pinch the handle of the knife or the point, and you throw, and it spins on the way to the target, or the hammer grip, it's basically making a fist around the handle. I don't like those as much because I think they're harder to do, which is the truth, but they're better for longer distance throwing. Now, this begs the question, why would you even want to learn this in the first place? What's the point? You know, why do I need to do this? Well, the first thing is, it can be lots of fun. One of my favorite memories is of me and a buddy going outside of my house, and I had made a homemade target, and he says, hey, why don't we back up way farther than we've been throwing, and just try it. So we scooped back, and we're hooking a heavy piece of metal at a hard target from a long distance, which can only go great. But his first throw, and he's not the knife thrower, I'm the knife thrower, okay? He just hauls off that thing, spins, lands beautifully in the target, and then I miss. But it was still really cool to see that. So, you know, what can you do? Something else you can do is that most people don't know that there are actual literal competitions that you can go and compete in. So there are like world ranked or nationally ranked knife throwers who can throw from like crazy distances. I'm talking 75, 80 feet and land in the center of the targets. That's insane, but if you try hard enough, practice, you could be one of those people one day. And another very real thing that you can do with this is self-defense. So most people, when they're holding a knife, they won't think, oh, I'm going to throw this at somebody. You know, if they're coming to attack me, they think, oh, I'll just stab them. But if you happen to have, you know, a drawer or a bucket full of knives and there's somebody climbing through the window, you know, throw a couple their way and it might dissuade them a little bit. They may back out and not try to rob you or attack you or whatever you're thinking. So throughout the course of this presentation, you've learned what knives are good for throwing, techniques for throwing those knives, and then reasons to learn the art of throwing. And hopefully, after we leave here, you consider either learning to or researching a little bit about knife throwing. And maybe one day you'll have like this cool new hobby too. Thank you.